What is up, KastKing fans? This is Ethen Preston from Preston Outdoors, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about my state, home state here of North Dakota. Joining me here today is my dog Sadie, and we're going to be telling you a little bit about North Dakota's fisheries. And when you're talking about huge fisheries, as in man-made, giant man-made reservoirs, North Dakota does not have that. Most of the time we're looking at your natural fisheries, but it's a real unique place. If you're looking for a lot of farmland, that's what we got here. A lot of farmland, a lot of what would be called sloughs in other states. But the North Dakota Game and Fish Department does a very good job of stocking fish in a lot of these would-be sloughs, to where you can go out covered with cattails all around this little body of water, maybe out in the middle of a cornfield, something like that, or end of a shelter belt. You go out there, have access, put a boat in, fish from shore, and our big species here are northern pike, walleye, and yellow perch, to where you can go out to any one of those sloughs and potentially catch limits and good size of all three species. Now, myself as a bass fisherman, for the most part, grew up fishing all kinds of these big three species and adding in largemouth, smallmouth bass, catfish, bluegill, everything like that, to where we catch it all and we have it all. The big opportunities again are for the big three, your pike, your walleye, your perch, but there are opportunities in river systems and other bodies of water to catch largemouth and smallmouth bass. When we're talking about lakes, we have two per se, our two biggest lakes here in North Dakota. The largest lake in North Dakota, man-made lake in North Dakota, I should say, is Lake Sakakawea. Now, this is a reservoir off the Missouri River. Lake Sakakawea is approximately 180 miles long, and that is just, straight. And it accompanies about 1,530 miles of shoreline. The big fish that are usually caught on Lake Sakakawea is generally your northern pike, which happens to be, again, the state fish of North Dakota. Giant trophy-sized northern pike caught out of there. Lots of population of walleye in there as well, and with some big walleyes being caught. And since it's the unique part about this lake is, since it's so deep, since it's the man-made reservoir from the Missouri River, there's actually salmon opportunities to catch salmon out there in that lake. Comes in here on the western portion of the state, runs over, turns into Lake Sakakawea, then the tail race at Riverdale runs south through the state capital of Bismarck, through Fort Yates into South Dakota, and then that runs all the way down and actually connects with the Mississippi River in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, the Missouri River here in North Dakota is famous for its walleye population, especially early in the spring, because most parts of the river are the first ones to open up after ice off, or actually stay open all year long, to where you can access it from boat and fish walleyes all season long in certain portions. But usually around March, April, where everybody else is still ice fishing or getting through with their ice fishing season, there's tons of people that dump their boats in at Bismarck, the state capital, like I said, and go and fish for walleyes and catch trophy class walleyes, and a lot of walleyes for limits to take home to their families. Probably the most famous lake in North Dakota, if you've ever heard of North Dakota in the first place, and what we got here for fisheries, is Devil's Lake in Ramsey County, which is in the northern portion of North Dakota on the eastern side of the lake, and the Devil's Lake Basin. Now, Devil's Lake is famous for, really was put on the map for its yellow perch population. It's been dubbed the perch capital of the world, where trophy-sized yellow perch from 11 to 12 to 14 inches are caught, especially during the ice season. It's a huge recreational and tourist place for anglers especially. Now, the yellow perch population, being as famous as it is, does not still take away from the mass amounts of different species you can catch there. Famously are its white bass population, and especially its walleye population, which is world-class, from trophy-sized walleyes to tournament scenarios where there's a bunch of tournaments out on the lake, to being able to go out and not have to hire a guide to figure out a system out there. There is a ton of younger year class walleyes in there, for your eating population, for a family to go out there and catch limits and bring home to eat or whatever. So Devil's Lake, for a recreational standpoint, it's the largest natural lake in North Dakota The Devil's Lake Basin itself has approximately about 3,810 square miles of just the river basin and the lake itself. To anywhere up in that river shed, any of the water, the runoff, anything like that, it all dumps into Devil's Lake. So it's naturally fed, and it has a lot of great fish, and a lot of the perch fishing and stuff is due to its natural population of freshwater scuds or freshwater shrimp, to where other places here around the state, we have a lot of natural populations of fathead minnows. Have a lot of natural populations of fathead minnows, but Devil's Lake and some other surrounding lakes, but the big thing on Devil's Lake that gives you those world-class fisheries for perch is the scud population, the high scud population, especially when we're ice fishing up there. You drill your hole with your ice auger, water will come up through the hole, and these little bitty freshwater shrimp or scuds will come out and just start, moving around on top. So if you can find that area, and that's what gives the lake its such population, is it grows big perch. Well, then perch are a bait fish for northerns, so if you northerns and walleyes and anything else in that system. So if you have a good population of prey species, which just happen to be a target species in sport game fish here in North Dakota, it also helps the populations above that. So I've touched on the Missouri River, I've touched on Lake Sakakawea, and I've touched on Devil's Lake. All those big three species like we mentioned before, pike, walleyes, and perch. But one underlying thing that doesn't really get much attention, and there's not a high population of people that do it here in North Dakota, is the bass fishing. Most of the time with your bass fishing lakes, they're very small, and a lot of them are idle speed only, or certain horsepower motors can't be accessed on this lake, and they're few and far between. But if you can get out on these smaller lakes, you're going to have a great success, because there's not a lot of people that are going to fish for bass here. It's dominated by the walleye, pike, and perch fishermen, to where if you see a bass boat driving down the road, like the one I fish out of, a Skeeter or any other predominantly bass boat, more often than not that person that has that boat. So it's kind of a cool scenario to where you can drive down the highway and say, oh, I've seen that boat before, statewide. Some of the other lakes and river systems we have, the Cheyenne River, which has a great population of smallmouth bass, which runs into say Lake Ashtabula and stuff, has smallmouth in there. So it's few and far between, but the areas that we have will produce fish and some trophy-sized fish. Where the largest largemouth bass state record out of North Dakota is a little over 8 pounds, caught out of Lake Nelson, and the largest smallmouth bass is, let me see, it was 6 pounds 13 ounces. It was 22 inches long, which was caught out of Spiritwood Lake a few years ago. Not a lot of bass fishermen in the area, but a great another sport species that has really taken off the past few years, especially in the Red River, which is on the eastern portion of North Dakota, butting up against Minnesota. The blue and channel catfish sport has really boomed there, to where the Red River, in the northern portion of the Red River up by Canada, has been dubbed the catfish capital of the world up by Darling. Now, they're not getting flathead catfish up here. You're predominantly getting your blue catfish and channel cats, but that is another sport that has really taken off for anglers around the area. Another thing I wanted to touch about, I already mentioned it a couple times, is the ice fishing season. Most of the time here, depending on the year, we're ice fishing from the end of November, beginning of December, all the way till March, sometimes April. Then you get your open water season. So most of the year here in North Dakota, we're doing a lot of ice fishing. There are a few people that don't partake in ice fishing because we can get some brutally cold winters up here, in the negative 40s with with wind chill and stuff like that. So it can get predominantly cold. But a lot of us anglers like myself, you put the boat away, you put the big rods and tackle away, you whip out the ice fishing augers, the ice fishing shelters with heaters and stuff, and small rods, small baits, and some different electronics, and go out and chase these fish all year long. It's a little bit difficult to chase the largemouth and smallmouth bass, as in for bass, when you get super cold water temperatures and stuff like that, they really become lethargic. But the pike fishing, the walleye fishing, and the perch fishing still stays as hot as it is in the summer. We downsize our baits, little bitty spoons and stuff like that, but you can still get on the same amount of quality of bites and same size of fish as you can in the summer. So it's kind of a unique thing, to where we switch gears from, you know, taking the boat in, dumping it off the ramp, to using a four-wheeler when the, you know, the ice is safe to, you know, about your 6 to 10 inches, and then about a foot to 2 feet, 3 feet ice, depending on how cold we are. We're taking out, you know, pickups like this, Suburbans, stuff like that, and driving actually on top of the ice and through the snow to get to the spots we want to fish. So it's a very, very unique thing, especially up here in the northern areas, unlike you know, some of the other videos you've seen here on the KastKing Travel Guide channel. Florida and stuff like that, or where it just doesn't freeze up. Where up here it freezes up solid, and you can guarantee it to where we're going to be getting some blizzards. You know, a blizzard coming through 2 to 3 feet of snow isn't that uncommon. So we adjust our fishing styles to stay with the fish, and just different techniques and stuff like that. So again, like I mentioned before, the North Dakota Game and Fish Department has done a real good job being able to grow our fish in the fish hatcheries and distribute them throughout the state to keep these fish populations booming. And the great thing about this is a lot of them have your dock access to put your boats in, you know, ramps and stuff like that, to where if one lake over here or slough area, excuse me, has been booming for perch, booming for walleyes, all of a sudden, you know, ice fishing, summer fishing, it kind of gets knocked down. A few fish have been taken out of the system. The bite isn't as hot. A few miles away, there's another lake that's booming and blowing up. So a lot of times, especially with ice fishing, we can bounce around and fish, you know, 10, 15 lakes in a winter season up here, and have great success on catching fish and bringing home fish to eat.